Okay, thank you very much. I'm Chris, this is Viv, and our presentation is about the journey of the Consumer and Community Reference Committee, which we have called Scaling the Involvement Pyramid, from 7 to 17 and the things that happened in between. What we are talking about here is that we started with 7 members on the committee and now we have 17. 2019 was about formally establishing the committee and commencing the involvement journey. What was that going to look like and what was best practice? 2020, just as we started gaining momentum, COVID hit. Meetings moved to online. Our planned event, at that stage yet to be named, for 2020 was cancelled. During 2020, consumers were learning more about the flagship program, listening to presentations from researchers and identifying ways that they could be involved. We welcomed 2 additional members, Meg Denham and Kerry Tomlin. A highlight of 2020 was the introduction of a Consumer Choice Award for the best plain language presentation at the Early Mid-Career Symposium. This enabled consumers to hear about research projects early and mid-career researchers to provide feedback. It also provided an opportunity for researchers to connect with consumers early. One of the criteria in this award was related to reference and research impact. 2021, we had 4 meetings, 2 new members, Hilary Hill and Anna Ritchie. In February, the flagship held a meet and greet workshop combined with a C&CR meeting at the Wool Store. This was important in establishing trust, mutual respect, a shared vision and common purpose, all of which are essential principles of successful CCI. Our first Research with Connections event was held in May 2021, inviting CCI onto our projects. Now, in 2024, we are hearing about the impact of that involvement. Continuing in 2021, members attended their first strategy day of the flagship. Due to the increasing capability of the committee and to encourage capacity building, the terms of reference were amended to allow for an increase in membership from 12 to 18 and to recognise the demographics of MS, 75% female. A deputy chair was elected in August, endorsed by the steering committee. The media training was embraced by most members, and whilst some were a little hesitant, the results speak for themselves when you view the outputs of the mini MOOCs, the CCI testimonial videos, and the new content of the Understanding MS MOOC. 2022 was a big year for continued growth in CCI throughout the flagship. Julia and Thomas Henke, along with Bridie Phillips and Angela Land, were welcomed to the committee, bringing significant expertise from a lived experience, health professional and scientific perspective, increasing the capability of the committee further. The Deputy Chair became a member of the Steering Committee, and along with the Chair, both were now on the Steering Committee. A professional development day was jointly hosted by the flagship and the Tasmanian Collaboration for Health Improvement on CCI, and the importance of using plain language for communication and dissemination of research results. A Menzies-wide CCI policy was endorsed following the success of the flagship. This project was led by Natasha Stevens and, of course, informed by consumers and researchers. In 2022, the flagship was recognised at a national level as having strong CCI throughout its MS Research program and projects. The first 2 consumer associate investigators were named on a successful grant submission. As you can see, 345 hours of CCI was involved over 14 different projects, and this was growing. In 2023, 4 meetings were held, and we welcomed a new member, Mark Jablonski. Position description for committee members, the chair and deputy chair were introduced, and we started thinking about succession planning. For the first time, 2 of our members were invited by MS Australia to the Progress in MS conference in WA, one as a keynote co-presenter, the other as a session chair and guest panellist on CCI. Consumers and researchers of the flagship were involved in the development of a testimonial video, might have seen that earlier on at the start, highlighting the importance of consumer and community involvement, what it has meant to them and the impact that it has had. Throughout 2023, C&CRC members contributed 775 hours of CCI across 17 different research projects. They also attended and provided input on 16 occasions at networking and governance meetings of the flagship over the same period. 2024, here we are now. We have welcomed 3 new members to date, Esther Pregnell, Linda Hanlon and Sean O'More. The committee is receiving increased and early requests for CCI on project concepts, grant applications, research ideas, relevance and impact. A joint consumers and researchers research priority setting workshop was held in early May this year, where a list of 10 priority areas were identified. These will be taken forward for further development and discussion and incorporation into grant submissions as co-partnered or consumer-led research.
Thanks, Chris. So the graph that I've got up here demonstrates the hours increasing year on year of consumer involvement. So the things that Chris talked about that happened from 2019 up to now have really made a difference, and those hours have increased over time, and that's reflecting of the capability and capacity not only of the members of the Consumer and Community Reference Committee, but also the commitment of Menzies to invest and nurture the capability in consumer and community involvement. This graph here actually demonstrates the success of the grant submissions year on year, and as you can see, there is a trend upwards. For the researchers in the room or the scientists in the room, I'm not saying that increased consumer and community involvement is causation of this increased success rate in the grants, but I just think that there's a strong correlation there. So I'll just put it out there to say that the value of consumer and community involvement certainly has a significant impact. This I've just popped up here a graph showing the involvement pyramid. Many of you would have seen this before. Chris and I have talked to it at previous talks, but there is a involvement pyramid where we're at the, say, all levels of involvement are important, but what we're trying to get to is having from that base level of informing, which is what we're doing today, where we're talking to you about research and informing you, going right up the pyramid to actually have consumer-led research and co-production and partnerships up towards the top of the pyramid. So my next slide is going to say, how are we tracking or trekking up that pyramid here at the flagship? And so there's all our wonderful consumers making their way up the mountain, and someone's putting the gold star right at the top of that consumer-led sphere of the pyramid. So I've just got some practical examples there of some of the projects that are at those various stages of involvement. So informing, and as I mentioned, it's similar to what we're doing today with this Research with Connections event, where you're listening to talks from researchers, and we have newsletters, workshops, and the CCI testimonial that you saw was letting you talking to you about what people think about being involved in the research. Laura and Alice and Julie with their online mini MOOCs. The next level up was consulting, where they actually consulted and had focus groups to inform the development of those courses. And Bruce is going to talk later this afternoon, Taurus 1 and 2, which is basically the magnetic brain stimulation for MS. The consumers are really involved in that throughout the research cycle, from looking at patient information sheets, consent forms, looking at the protocol. And next level up, we're talking partnership, and you would have heard Alice talk about the development of MS WorkSmart. Obviously, the Understanding MS MOOC has been a massive partnership between consumers, the researchers and funders. And right at the top of the pyramid there, where we have consumer-led, and some of the examples of that where we have consumers that have involved and input to strategic reviews, consumers on steering committees, we have a consumer on the scientific advisory committee, and we have 2 associate investigators on a successful grant submission, and I would suggest that there would be more on the way. So I'd really like to thank, we've seen this wonderful photo many times today. I'd really like to thank the members of our Consumer Community Reference Committee. There are now 17 of them. I won't mention them all by name because we have gone through their presentation, but I do really want to acknowledge the people that are not in that main photo that were not able to attend on that day. So that's Kerry Tomlin, Linda Hanlon, who's recently joined, Sean O'More, Esther Pregnell, and the lovely Julia and Thomas Henker there in, it's not a spaceship, it's something that goes under the sea. I'm not quite sure. So thank you for listening. I'll be on the trade table over lunch. If you want to have a talk to me about that, you're thinking about joining the committee, what does it mean, please come and see Chris or I or any of the other lovely people in the room. We're only too happy to have a chat. Acknowledging the project contributors and project funding and the event contributors and the event funding. Thank you very much.